My name is Jason, and my project is about the effect climate change has on coastal fisheries. The first topic is salinity. So how does salinity affect the wild stock? Well, first we kind of need to understand why salinity has become such an issue. So, as global warming has started to warm the poles more rapidly than anywhere else, a lot of fresh water has started to enter the oceans. So this is concentrated, like I said, at the poles, so North and South Pole. But because salt and fresh water don't typically like to mix, rather than mixing where the fresh water is coming in, the salt water is being pushed into the center near the equator and it's being concentrated there, raising salinity levels. This causes a lot of trouble for fish that are trying to spawn, because typically they like to spawn in areas of fresh water or areas with low salinity because it provides the best chance at reproductive success. The higher salinity levels have and will continue to kill off eggs and juveniles before they can mature. High salinity can also kill off phytoplankton that serve as a primary food source for many marine creatures, especially filter feeders. Growth of fish can also be extremely affected by this, seeing that incubation, the development of a swim bladder, and larval growth are all very dependent on salinity. Carbonic acid, much like salinity, can have very detrimental effects to the development of fish and the eggs. Because of all the CO2 in the atmosphere, it builds up in the ocean because the ocean is a carbon sink, and it raises the acidity of the ocean itself. And this extra acidity can be toxic to the eggs of fish, and it kills them off before they can reach maturity. But at high levels it can also cause cardiac failure in adult fish, which has been shown in sea bass through a couple of studies. At slightly lower levels, however, it is also demonstrated that these fish were prone to freezing, which is like being in anaphylactic shock. This also caused suppression to the olfactory senses. This meant that fish did not react to the smells given off by prey and would often investigate the smells given off by predators, which in the wild is not a very good adaptation to have. A later study showed that these genes were also expressed in young at a decreasing rate, with less development of the brain and nose in future generations of these fish that grew up in these conditions. High acidity in the water also leads to the corrosion of calcium in shells, which can kill shellfish very early on, and it can kill them in mass amounts quickly if the seed is not protected. Increasing temperatures can have very harmful effects for crustaceans. Increasing temperatures force crustaceans into spawning more often and at shorter intervals. This leads to underdeveloped larvae being in abundance at times of the year that don't offer high survival rates. Because of high mortalities, productivity of the wild stock is also decreased, with prey items in demand more often, not giving them enough time to properly replenish. Due to less spawning and lower levels of reproduction, fishing seasons will likely have to be shifted or shortened as time goes on. As prey items become scarce, the fish will also likely have to alter their movement patterns, making crustaceans especially difficult to catch for fishermen. As water warms and tropical waters become less habitable for tropical fish, we will start to see an influx of invasive species as well. And this can have detrimental effects to our native species, because in many cases they will be either outcompeted or displaced entirely. Warming oceans will have detrimental effects on some aquaculture fish. In many cases they won't be able to have their physiological needs met, because typically fish are adapted to a certain level of oxygen content in the water, and as it warms they likely won't be able to adjust quite as well to the lower level of oxygen that would be in warmer water. With warmer water also comes higher chance of disease, so in aquaculture or fish farming, with a lot of fish in close proximity runs the risk of higher disease. Saltwater intrusion can also have detrimental effects for freshwater fish because in aquaculture they typically don't have the means to reposition themselves in an area where they can continue to live in fresh water, so they won't be able to adjust and in many cases will die due to the higher level of salinity in the water. Due to a possible lack of catch in the future, we could also run into the issue of reduced fish meal for feeding the fish in the aquaculture industry. And as water warms, we'll start to see a decrease in oxygen in already warm waters. But because of this warming, we could also see better aquaculture opportunities for the higher latitudes, so like higher on the coast of the United States and Canada. As the water warms, we will start to see some more productivity in the fish, so that could lead to more aquaculture possibilities. The effects on the economy. Like I mentioned before, there's going to be a large toll taken on tropical locations because that's where most of the aquaculture industry is located. This is because their warm waters are just going to continue to get warmer, and this leads to even lower levels of oxygen, which makes it very difficult to raise fish in those conditions. We could also see a boost or a decline in subtropical locations. This is because most of the existing fish species are going to either move or are going to have a very hard time adapting to the new climate. However, this also means that the warmer waters could boost productivity in fish so that we will see higher yields out of them. But we are also going to see a much larger reliance on finfish because with the acidity of the water increasing, we aren't going to be able to produce shellfish quite as efficiently or reliably. And this could lead to a partial collapse of the shellfish industry because if you can't produce your shellfish reliably or efficiently, then you're going to lose a lot of money trying to keep up in the business.